The cafe opens before the sun reaches the stone rooftops. Inside, the chairs are already set. The small round tables wait by the window. A handwritten menu hangs slightly crooked on the wall, but the door never rings. Not this morning, not yet. A kettle hums behind the counter. Cups are lined up with careful precision. Fresh bread arrives in a quiet delivery crate and disappears into the warm air of the room. Everything is ready. No one is. Outside, the village moves slowly the way people around the world imagine this country still does. A narrow street curves between pale houses. Shutters open one by one. A bicycle leans against a wall that has watched generations pass. From a distance, it looks peaceful, timeless, perfectly preserved. But inside the cafe, silence sits longer than it should. The owner wipes the same table twice, not because it is dirty, but because waiting needs something to hold on to. There was a time when this hour meant voices. Neighbors stopping for coffee before work, farmers trading news, students rushing past with bread tucked under their arms. Now, there is only the soft sound of a radio filling space that used to belong to people. The village still exists. The buildings still stand. The streets still follow the same curves drawn centuries ago. Nothing here looks broken. And that is what makes it harder to notice what is missing. A small sign near the counter reads, "Open every morning." It has not changed in years. What has changed is who still comes. The post office closed last winter. The school merged with another town. The last grocery store shortened its hours again quietly, without announcement. No crisis arrived. No disaster forced anyone to leave. Life simply became thinner, slower in a way no postcard ever shows. From the outside, this place still feels like the dream the world associates with this country. Stone walls, warm bread, unrushed mornings. But dreams can survive long after the people who created them begin to disappear. And here, in villages like this, something far more fragile than tradition is fading. It is daily life. So, before we talk about famous streets, grand monuments, or crowded squares, before we even say the name of this country, there is a quieter question waiting in rooms like this one. In the country that taught the world how to slow down, why are its villages running out of people? When most people think about this country, their imagination goes to the same places. A tower rising over a river, a famous museum, a wide avenue glowing at night. But the France that shapes everyday life for millions of people does not live inside a postcard. It lives far from the cameras. It lives in farming villages where the train no longer stops. In small towns stretched between mountains and open fields, in regions that sit quietly outside the shadow of high-speed rail lines and global tourism routes. And this is where the uncomfortable version of France begins. Because while the world celebrates the image of culture, beauty, and lifestyle, a very different France is being reorganized in silence. Public services concentrate. Hospitals merge and move farther away. Administrative offices close and reopen in larger regional centers. Jobs follow mobility. Students follow universities. Investment follows density. And slowly, a country famous for balance and quality of life begins to tilt toward its biggest cities. Here is the controversial part. France did not abandon its rural territories by accident. It redesigned the system to favor connection, speed, and efficiency. High-speed trains connect the country, but only if you already live near their lines. Digital services make life easier, but only if you still have stable infrastructure and access. Cultural visibility grows, but it concentrates around places that already attract the world. For everyone else, distance quietly increases. Not emotional distance. Practical distance. Distance to medical care. Distance to stable work. Distance to education. Distance to political attention. From Paris, from Lyon, from the major hubs, the country feels more connected than ever. From many rural towns, France feels farther away than it used to. This is not a story about nostalgia. It is a story about distribution. Because when a nation invests primarily in speed, scale, and global competitiveness, The places that were built for proximity, local life, and slow stability begin to lose relevance inside the new system. So this is also France. Not the France of monuments, not the France of postcards, but the France of villages, quiet stations, empty schoolyards, and long drives for simple appointments. A France that still exists, just not the one most people are taught to see. Why is everyday France quietly disappearing, while the image of France becomes more famous than ever? On the surface, the country is doing exactly what the modern world rewards. More tourists, more international students, more global attention, more cultural influence. France has never been easier to recognize. Its cafés, streets, fashion, food, and art circulate endlessly online. Millions of people consume the idea of France every day, without ever setting foot inside the places where most French people actually live. And that is where the contradiction becomes difficult to ignore. Because the more visible France becomes to the world, the less visible everyday France becomes to its own future. The France of school drop-offs, of small medical clinics, of local markets, of village bakeries that open before sunrise, of long commutes that do not lead to iconic landmarks. Nothing dramatic happens to these places. There is no collapse, no crisis broadcast on the evening news. Life simply becomes thinner. Fewer children in classrooms, fewer trains on schedules, fewer businesses willing to take risks, fewer reasons for young adults to imagine a long life there. And yet on paper, France is succeeding. So the real tension is not between decline and prosperity. It is between two different versions of success. One version is measured in reputation, in global rankings, in tourism numbers, in cultural reach. The other version is measured quietly, in whether a family can still stay close to grandparents, in whether a village still justifies a school, in whether a young couple can build a future without leaving their region behind. And this leads to the second question that no national strategy ever answers clearly. If a country becomes famous for the way it lives, but fewer people can afford or choose to live that way locally, what exactly is being preserved? Which version of France is being protected? And which one is slowly being priced out of its own future? And more importantly, why do some people still choose to stay, even when the system quietly teaches them that the center of life now exists somewhere else? From here on, this is no longer a story about infrastructure or policy. It becomes a story about people. So instead of statistics, let's follow a morning. Not in a capital, not near a monument, not on a famous street, just a small village, somewhere between the hills and the fields. The boulangerie opens before sunrise. A narrow wooden door swings in. A bell above it barely makes a sound. Inside, the air is already warm. Flour dust floats in the light coming from a single window. Trays of dough rest quietly on metal racks. The oven hums steady, patient, familiar. The baker moves without speaking. She has done this for decades. The same motions, the same table, the same corner where the radio plays softly every morning. Fresh bread slides into the oven. Minutes later, the smell fills the room. It is the kind of smell people travel across the world to experience. But here, no one is filming it. At 7:30, the first customer arrives. A man from the street behind the church. He does not look at the menu. He never needs to. Comme d'habitude, she already knows. A baguette, a small pain au chocolat, and a short conversation about the weather and the roadworks near the roundabout. Then the door closes again. 10 minutes pass. Another customer, an older woman who has lived in this village longer than the shop itself. They talk about a neighbor who moved to the city last year, about a grandson who studies in Lyon, about how quiet the square feels now on market days. The baker smiles, but her eyes follow the street through the window. One table outside, 2 chairs, empty. In many travel videos, this moment would be romantic. Here, it is practical, because this bakery no longer measures success in lines out the door. It measures it in continuity, in being able to open again tomorrow. in knowing that even if only one or two familiar faces walk in today, the village is still breathing. This is what everyday France looks like, not disappearing, just becoming quieter. And this is where the real story begins. When you step back outside the bakery, the village feels different. Not broken, just paused. A few streets away, the school building still stands. The gate is locked. Behind it, a small playground waits in perfect order. Painted lines on the ground, a faded hopscotch grid, a slide that has not moved in weeks. The sign on the wall is still there, but the voices are gone. The classroom windows reflect the sky instead of children. Not because something tragic happened. The school closed because there were not enough students left to keep it open. A short walk further, you reach the post office. The blue sign remains above the door. The hours are still printed on the window, but the door does not open anymore. A white paper is taped to the glass, pointing toward a larger town, 20 minutes away by car. For letters? For documents? For basic services that used to belong to the village? Then comes the bar. Every French village has one, or at least used to. A narrow terrace, two small tables, an old chalkboard menu. Today, the chairs are stacked inside. The door is shut. No arguments about football. No morning coffee. No evening laughter drifting into the square. The social heart of the village has simply gone quiet. And then you begin to notice the signs. Not tourist signs. Real ones. À vendre. On stone houses. On small farms at the edge of town. On family homes with gardens still carefully kept. For sale. For months. Sometimes for years. This is the visual shock no postcard shows you. Because nothing here looks abandoned. The streets are clean. The flowers are watered. The shutters are painted. But life has become thinner. Like a photograph, slowly losing contrast. From the bakery window, the village still smells like warm bread. From the square, it feels like something essential has quietly stepped away. This is not decline you can point at. It is absence you can walk through. And once you see it, it changes the way you understand that peaceful morning inside the boulangerie. Because now you realize that quiet is not only calm. Sometimes it is the sound of a place learning how to live with less. And then, almost without warning, the village changes. Not slowly, instantly. A tour bus stops at the edge of the square. Doors open, cameras come out, voices rise. For 20 minutes, this quiet place becomes alive again. People walk toward the old church. They take photos of the stone houses. They smile in front of the fountain. They film the bakery window you just stood in. From the outside, it looks like revival. It looks like proof that this village still matters. But watch carefully. No one buys groceries. No one uses the post office. It no longer exists. No one asks about schools, doctors, or apartments. They ask one question: how long do we have here? 10 minutes later, the group moves on. Another village. Another stop. Another photo. The street empties again. For the baker, the rush means a short line at the counter, a few baguettes, some postcards, a quick smile in English. It helps, but it does not replace. Tourism creates movement. It does not create roots. The money touches the village lightly. It does not circulate inside it. Most visitors sleep somewhere else, eat somewhere else, spend most of their time in places already designed for visitors. The village becomes a background, not a home, and this is the uncomfortable twist. Tourism can make a place visible, but visibility is not the same as viability. A cafe can survive a season. A family cannot plan a future on weekends. A school cannot reopen because of good reviews. A doctor will not move here because of beautiful photos online. So let me ask you something honestly. Can a village survive on visitors alone? Because for the people who still live here, tourism is not a solution. It is a pause. A brief interruption in a much longer story of departure. The village looks alive when the cameras arrive. But when the bus leaves, the same quiet returns. And for those who remain, the real question is not how to attract more visitors. It is how to keep life here, after the visitors are gone. After the bus leaves, the village returns to its real rhythm. And this is where the most uncomfortable conversation begins. Because when you talk to people here, the divide is not between tourists and locals. It is between those who left and those who stayed. Many of the young people grew up on these same streets. They sat in the same classrooms that are now closed. They played football on the same field that is slowly fading from use. Today, most of them live in Paris, or Lyon, or one of the cities where opportunity still gathers. Not because they wanted to abandon this place, but because this place stopped offering a future they could build. They found work. They built independence. They learned new lives. And from the outside, it looks like success. But return for a weekend, and you hear a different story. They come back to houses that no longer belong to their generation, to fields that are still farmed by parents growing older every year, to family land that cannot easily be sold, not emotionally, and sometimes not practically. The people who stayed carry something heavier. They keep the houses open. They keep the farms running. They keep the graves of grandparents clean and visible. They keep the memory of what this village used to be and what it still means. And now comes the new tension. More and more homes are not becoming homes again. They become short stays, renovated carefully, photographed beautifully, listed online. Airbnb replaces family housing, not because anyone planned it that way, but because visitors can pay more than neighbors. Weekends become profitable. Long-term life becomes complicated. For some residents, this feels like rescue. For others, it feels like displacement without eviction. The village fills, but only temporarily. So here is the question that divides this place more than politics ever could. Is it progress when a house is full, but no one actually lives there? Is it survival when money arrives, but community quietly thins? In villages like this, the future is not being argued in meetings. It is being negotiated through property listings, through who can still afford to stay, and who slowly realizes that even returning home is becoming harder. After you understand the housing tension, something becomes impossible to unsee. You begin to notice that there are now two versions of France living side by side, but rarely touching each other. There is the France people come to visit, the France of golden cafés in narrow streets, of shutters painted soft blue, of market stalls arranged perfectly for photos, of slow mornings and long lunches that seem to belong to another century. This is the France that travels the world on Instagram. And then there is the France that quietly lives behind those images. The one that wakes up early for farm deliveries. The one that drives 40 minutes to the nearest hospital. The one that checks the weather not for sightseeing, but for harvest, livestock, and survival. In the first France, time feels generous. In the second, time feels logistical. One is designed to be admired. The other is designed to function. And sometimes, they occupy the same street. On one side, a renovated stone house with fresh flowers on every window. A key box hanging by the door. Guests arriving for 3 nights. On the other, an old family home with the lights on every evening. The same car parked in the same place. The same routine holding a shrinking community together. From the outside, they look almost identical. From the inside, they belong to different worlds. This is the quiet divide. Not between cities and countryside, but between France as an experience and France as a responsibility. France for memories, and France for maintenance. France for escape, and France for continuity. The danger is not that visitors arrive. Villages have always welcomed outsiders. The danger is something subtler. When the image of France becomes more valuable than the daily life of France, when shutters, stone walls, and village squares generate more income as scenery than as places to actually grow old. This is how two Frances emerge. France you scroll through, and France you carry. One travels fast, the other stays. And for the people who still live here, every season quietly asks the same question: which France is being protected? And which one is slowly being priced out of its own future? When you stand between these two Frances, the real loss doesn't show up in statistics. It lives in quieter places, in the sound of language. Here, in this village, people do not speak exactly the French you hear on television. The rhythm is slower. The words bend differently. Old expressions survive that never make it into school books. A local accent carries more than pronunciation. It carries memory. It tells you who grew up here, who learned to count seasons before calendars, who can name every hill, every field, every bend in the road, even when there is no sign for it anymore. This is what disappears first. Not buildings, not businesses, but the invisible grammar of a place. A woman at the bakery tells us she still calls the same customers by the names their parents were known by. Not their legal names, their village names, the names you earn only after years of living side by side. In her voice, the village still feels crowded, even if the street outside no longer is. Behind almost every door here, there is a layered family story. A grandfather who rebuilt the house after the war. A mother who kept the farm alive when prices collapsed. A son who now lives in Lyon, but still comes back every holiday, not because it is convenient, but because it is necessary. Not for work, for belonging. And this is where the two Frances feel most different. The France you visit gives you atmosphere. The France that remains gives you identity. For the people who stay, the village is not scenery. It is a living archive. Every wedding photo on the wall, every repaired roof, every handwritten name on an old mailbox. This is not nostalgia, it is continuity. Because home is not the place that becomes famous. Home is the place that remembers you, even when no one else is watching. And for many families here, leaving would not only mean changing an address, it would mean losing the last space where their own language, their own stories, and their own way of being still makes sense. In villages like this, homeland is not something you advertise. It is something you quietly protect.